What is the worst mistake you've ever made in the garden? Leave us a comment below and let us know. Guten Yardening, everybody. We're here almost at the end of April in Zone 5, Wisconsin, and that means that spring has been here for a couple of weeks. But if you were to go outside right now, you probably couldn't tell, because the temperatures for the last couple of days at night have been below freezing. And you know that when spring comes around, if you're a gardener, if you're an aspiring gardener, if you're somebody who's been doing this for years, you want to get outdoors. You want to get the seedlings that you've started transplanted. You want to get seeds into the ground. There's an excitement that comes from that change in seasons, that shift away from winter, that time where we're preparing our gardens for what lies ahead, which is hopefully a fantastic growing season. And oftentimes, no matter how well or even how poorly our last growing season went, that excitement carries us a long way into the growing season. But the garden, depending on the size and what it is that you're trying to grow, and really your end goal for what you're growing, can take up a good bit of time. And so we can't just rely on the excitement at the very beginning of the season. We have to be able to maintain, because as we go through the course of the season, there will be times where we have to redo. There will be times where we have to undo things that we've done if we can. There'll be times where we have to shift directions in order to make the best of whatever situation is presented to us. And especially if you're in one of the cooler growing zones like we are here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, it can sometimes feel like a race against the clock. We have a limited growing season. We have a limited capacity to plant some vegetables, and the timeline where we are choosing when to plant is essential. And so we have to know what it takes for us to make the most of our growing season, to get the most out of the vegetables we plant, to get the most out of succession planting. All of these pieces, these ideas, these thoughts are running around in our minds as we prepare for planting and as we prepare to lay out what this growing season should look like. An example of this would be our sweet potatoes, one of our favorite plants to get into the ground. In order to get the best production, we have to try to get them out as soon as we can, safely, when the soil's warm enough, and then we try our best to extend. And as we saw last year, there's a specific amount of time that these plants definitely need, and if we can't give them what they need, well, our production is not going to be what we want. So that planning piece is essential. But if the weather that we've had over the past week has taught us anything, and should teach us anything, is that there is a ton of wisdom, a ton of knowledge out there surrounding when we should take our vegetables and our seeds and put them into our outdoor space. And that's where we start to see one of the biggest mistakes people make in terms of rushing, because that excitement to get outdoors is strong. I know it's strong because I want to get out there too. I want to get these plants, these vegetables into the ground. I want to get that garden going. But there's a reason why there are suggested planting times for your vegetables. Unless you're a hydroponics grower, your first step is making sure you have a good soil. That's true. But beyond that piece, if you want to have strong seedlings, if you want to give your seeds the best chance to germinate, the best chance to grow, and to mature healthy plants that are going to provide you with a great abundance of fruits and vegetables, you have to make sure the timing is right. There are so many elements that are going to come our way that we can't necessarily control in the middle of our growing season. Weather will shift, we'll have storms, we'll have wind, we'll have all of these pieces that come at us, but there is something that we can control that's going to help us limit loss, and that is our own excitement at getting out there too quickly. Now, some of you are in warmer growing zones, and you know that your preparation often actually stems around dealing with that brutal heat in the middle of summer, in the middle of your growing season. But for those of us, again, who are in those cooler climates, we have to pay attention to our last and our first frost dates. We have to know that these are the average times that we're running into a possible frost and try to plan accordingly, or else we are going to run into massive frustration. If I allowed those 70-degree days that we had, and we had multiple beautiful 70-degree Fahrenheit days several weeks ago, if I had allowed that to dictate when I brought my warmer crop vegetables outdoors, they would be dead. And so maintaining or reining in some of that excitement to make sure I focus in on what I really need to do, which is to wait a little bit until I am almost guaranteed that the temperatures are going to stay warmer, I'm going to save myself a ton of loss and a ton of expense, and probably even more importantly, a bunch of frustration that could cause me to want to just give up on gardening in the first place. There is a ton of research out there that lets you know the approximate best times for planting of a large variety of vegetables in your growing zone, and we highly recommend that you take a look at that advice and use that advice to help you understand when to plan for bringing your plants outside, to plan for planting, to plan for the succession crops that most of us need in order to make our space as productive as possible. We've done a few videos on seeds to start in February, March, and April here in Zone 5, and we'll continue to put that resource together. But most importantly, out of all of this is this idea that we, again, try to control our ambition to get our seedlings outside. They look great, and they're going to do great as long as we're patient and as long as we make the right decisions when it comes to timing. And no matter what, you likely won't have a perfect growing season, and you can expect that to be the case. That's perfectly fine. Quite frankly, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun if you didn't have some challenges that you had to troubleshoot and overcome. You may have to deal with pests. For those of you about to deal with the cicadas, I wish you the best of luck with all of that. You may have animals like the rabbits, deer that you have to struggle against in this process. But the one thing you do have absolute control over in this case is yourself, and making sure that you wait and that you plan appropriately so that the timing is right. We hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. We encourage you to get out there and start planning your garden today if you haven't done so already. There is a wonderful growing season ahead for us. We're so excited to share it with you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, and remember to share and subscribe. And most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.